Is he recording?
Oh, he's going to.
Is he? Okay. I figured I forgot to have to give him some notice. Sorry about that.
I'm sure he's, he's probably ready.
Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming. This is the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners. If we have roll call, please.
I didn't get the bed log.
Commissioner Rennie?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer? Here. Lathrop?
Here.
Limco?
Here. At this time, we'll have public comment. Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
But if you'd read the rules, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairman shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
How many people really want to make public comment? Cool. We'll let everybody have a chance to speak then. So, the young lady who stood up, if you'd come forward.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm new to this too. So, hi, my name is Kathy Coffin-Sheard. I live at 415 West 7th Street, Traverse City, Michigan, and is that all I'm supposed to say? It's like I'm like a kindergartner. So the reason why I'm here, and I spoke, addressed some things last week as well. I'm here to support the Easling Pool and the Grand Traverse Parks and Rec Department. I am the master's. I was hired as a master's swimming coach, which means anybody 18 and older in the community to swim. We swim competitively, fitness. We do triathlons. I have swimmers. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 77-year-old, and I have some 71s and 72s, and a couple of them are here in 60s, and I'm really proud of that. And I will just kind of cut to the chase. Without the support of Jason Jones and the Parks and Rec, we would not have this program exist as it does. I have over 75 people that swim. And we swim 9 practices a week. And not only does the pool support master swimming, I actually have a document for you all that, may I hand it to you, or after the fact, please. It has a list of what happens at the pool every day, starting at 5 in the morning. I have people drive as far as Leelanau County, Benzie County, Antrim County to drive to the pool to start at 5. That doesn't mean they're there at 5:02. That means that they're at 4:50, 4:45, staying in the parking lot ready to get in the pool. After we swim an hour and a half, there's lap swim. After that, the Coast Guard trains. Aqua Fitness comes in. Another group of Aqua Fitness comes in. Master swims again. Grand Traverse Industries, Traverse Bay Intermediate School District also comes in. Then lap swim comes with lessons at the same time. Girls High School goes for 3 months, high school swimming and diving. After that, the breakers come in. The breakers are the USA swim group or swim club that is supported, also not supported by the county in terms of financially, but they're an independent 501c3 group that comes in and swims at the pool. Springboard Diving Club and ends with lap swim or open swim. That's from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9:15. That pool is facilitating all these people. In addition to this, new freshman water safety instruction classes were being taught by the Red Cross and Coast Guard and the support of the Civic Center pool. The Breakers age group team, like I mentioned before, has 144 members. They swim 11 months, master swimmers 12 months. We have 75 members. Special Olympics trains there, Aqua Fitness 3 levels, over 50 members, 6 times a week. In addition, there are programs that are supporting our members. There are 60 people involved in the Great Lakes Challenge right now, or 61 active members. They've swam They swam 6,769 miles in the past 8 months, and that's an average of 110 miles per member. What does our Grand Traverse Rec Support do, or what do they support us? I just left the pool early from my practice so that I could be here in time. A lifeguard just said to me, "What am I going to do if I don't have my bosses in the building to support me? What am I going to do?" That's the last thing. Jason and Chris are the liaison between the guards, the other staff. They make sure all the staff and guards, especially, carry current and up-to-date certification and the management of all programs and schedules and addressing any daily needs of the public.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Yeah, we meet 350 people's needs a day. And in respect to, I just want to do two things. I want to thank Mr. Inman for his quote in the paper today. I really appreciate that, what he said, and in terms of our voices needing to be heard. And Mr. Thomas, I wanted to also support in raising the pool rates. We've talked about that. If that's a way that we can make this make this pool remain our community public pool, please do so and help us out. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person for public comment? Call.
My name is Joel Gaff. I live at 1742 Draca Road in Grand Traverse County. 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I swim from 8 a.m. to 8:40 a.m. I missed the meeting last week, and I wanted to make sure to get my support for the Easling Community Pool on the record. A couple things occur to me in addition to the fact that I hope the pool stays open for my own use. We just finally started having middle school students come over to the pool and get water safety instruction. I was there the other morning when 65 of them came into the building and got ready to have their time of instruction. They're getting both water safety and swimming, so it's a combination of a lot of things that they're learning there that they aren't getting anywhere else. And when we have a lot of water around, we need to teach our kids how to handle that, how to work with that, how to be safe, and how not to drown. It also seems to me like you spend a lot of money promoting the economic development of this area, and it seems like it would be difficult to go and talk to a high-class CEO about bringing his business here and then have the newspaper have an article in there about how you couldn't afford to keep your pool open. These are the kinds of things that I think, these quality of life things, that people that want to move here are looking for and expect, and they shouldn't have to go over to Kalkaska to get them. It also seems a shame that every time there's a budget problem, closing the pool seems to come up. I don't ever hear any other department being closed, but always it's the pool. I would invite you to become more aware of what goes on in the pool and what happens there and what the programs are and what kinds of things are done there, so that perhaps in the future you could look at it in a more balanced way. Thank you.
Somebody, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marcy Herman. I live at 4596 Westbrook Drive, which is Grand Traverse County, Garfield Township. I'm here today with my daughter Maddie, who's coloring. It was brought to our attention that it's under consideration to remove the caretaker positions at Power Island and Twin Lakes, and we are fans and frequent visitors to both locations. My children and I have 2 children and my husband, we are lovers of nature, and we have only moved here about 2 years ago. Since we've arrived, my children have taken stewardship of this beautiful area, and every day cannot get enough of what it has to offer. The fact that there are caretakers at Power Island and Twin Lakes show that those are really, really special places. We've been at Power Island. I know that a lot of people go there in anchor boats. but never step foot on the island, but we do. We hike there, we swim. I barefoot hiked to Eagle's Nest and never once cut my foot on a broken bottle or bottle cap. The island is in pristine condition. The fact that there is a caretaker, a ranger there, keeps people's awareness as to the fact that it does need to be taken care of, because if there isn't a caretaker there, I am afraid of the condition that the island could fall into. I grew up downstate near on Lake St. Clair, and there were two beautiful islands, Peach Island and Gull Island, that my family frequented with other families. And I returned about 5 years ago to Gull Island, which had no stewardship or caretaker assigned to it, and it was overtaken by partiers and teenagers, and you could not walk with a child on the island. You don't know what you would have stepped into or on or around. So I just ask you to reconsider removing those positions. I personally know Mr. Tank, and I know what a wonderful job he does at Power Island. Twin Lakes, I'm not familiar with that caretaker, but we frequent that park as well, and I've always felt safe and that it is a very clean and cared for park. So for our families and the next generation, I ask you to consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody over here? Back on the other side.
Hi, my name's Paula Colombo. I live at 622 Washington Street, Traverse City. I'm going to quickly, well not too quickly, read a letter, and this is a letter written by the women who participate in the water aerobics classes between 9 and 11 at the Civic Center pool. And I have copies that I can pass off. Dear County Commissioners, we are all participants in water aerobics classes provided by the Civic Center and respectfully request that you do not close Easling Pool. This community asset is vital to Grand Traverse County as well as the surrounding area. We love this facility and the staff who make it all possible. Many members of our class are senior citizens whose medical conditions only allow low-impact water aerobics. The central location of the facility and affordability of the classes allows us to maintain an active and productive life. We understand that you, as commissioners, are facing difficult budgetary decisions. However, keeping the pool open and maintaining these classes should remain a high priority. Thank you for your service to the community, and we encourage you to stop by the pool in the mornings between 9 and 11 a.m. to observe the positive environment this pool provides to your constituents. And then it's signed by numerous members. I just wanted to say I've participated at the pool in lap swim since 1999 when I moved here. I've probably swum at least 50 weeks out of every year. And the one thing that strikes me, too, one Mr. Gaff already mentioned, is that the number of times closing the pool has come up since I've been here is unbelievable to me. And I would remind everyone that repeatedly, unfortunately, decision is always made to keep the pool open. And I guess I would like you to revisit the reasons why you've opted to keep the pool open. And I think one of the biggest things I get out of going to the pool every day, or 5 days a week at least, is that there's a wonderful community of people there. Grand Traverse County and Traverse City is a great place to live. But the people there, all ages and all different backgrounds, come there and swim. It's a great place to be with people who have a similar enjoyment of swimming, but also a similar enjoyment for having an active lifestyle.
Thank you.
Thanks. Who wants the letter?
You can give it
The
to me
clerk.
and I'll put it in.
Okay. Anybody else for public comment, please?
Hello, my name is Wendy McWhorter. I live at 4011 Robin Hood Lane, Traverse City. I recently relocated back up here. I came up here 35 years ago to NMC. While I was there, that was the only pool to swim at. I've been a swimmer all my life. I've been a lifeguard, taught kids how to swim, and I truly believe if we don't have a pool, a public pool, where children can learn how to swim, we will have more incidences that we had this last summer. Another fact for keeping the pool open, it's centrally located. A lot of senior citizens live around the pool, and they can go there because it is centrally located. Quality of life. One of the reasons why I came back up here is quality of life, and we have a wonderful pool at Easling. And so for a lot of people, going to the Y will not be a possibility. So keeping Easling Pool open is very important to a large group of people. As you heard before, the numbers of people that go there every day and what they do, it is being used, and it's a valuable commodity for our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Jim McMillan, and I'm one of the Out County residents. I'm from Leelanau County at 8141 Southwest Bay Shore Drive. I was here the other night and listened to a lady speak just before Kathy, your first speaker today. And I won't go over all that lady's points, but 100% of what she said was what I was going to say the other night, and you limited conversation to 1 minute. That's about all I'm going to use right now. I've been involved in Michigan swimming since the age of 9. I've gone through every type of swimming competitively, collegiate at Michigan State, and I swam in special services for the United States Army. It has been a huge boon to my life in so many ways. Most of my friends are there for me, and I'm there for them, and most of them have been involved in swimming too. We have very close relationships throughout our lives. One thing I know that I have seen at the pool for many years now is the Breakers swimming team. They are developing and have developed some girls and boys that are stellar swimmers. These people will go on to be possibly future Olympians, national champions, world champions, record holders, what have you. I'd like to see that continue. It would be a shame to interrupt this program and pull these kids away from there. If I understand it, the nearest pool of competitive size is at Kalkaska. That would completely interrupt, I think, most people's swimming futures in this area. That would be a shame, and I'd like to just put that point across. The Breakers is developing some very, very good swimmers, and be a shame to lose that in this community. That's it.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Hello, my name is Allison Beers. I live at 10248 Fisher's Run. And I did come to speak the other night, but I felt so strongly that I wanted to come back and just reiterate my thoughts one more time on Jason Jones as an essential person in our county. I can't list more than 7, 10 organizations or more that he goes above and beyond his job description, plugging in Parks and Recreation into so many facets of what I do, and that I'm in organizations I'm involved with. And that goes above and beyond the operational capabilities of what his job entails. That is making sure that all aspects of Traverse City are engaged with the Parks and Recreation Department. So I can't urge enough how important I think he is in this role to our community and to our county, and keeping his position safe for the future and for my children's future. And as a county resident, I think it's really, really important. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Ryan Walsh. I live at 436 and a half West Front Street, and I currently on my lunch break, and I'm trying to run back to school here, so I'll keep it short. I work in the schools, and we attend the Civic Center every Friday with our special needs class, and I just want to emphasize how much of an asset that is for us, and the the dedication from the office manager and Jason to really come and work with our school and learn about our kids and how to best accommodate them. And I think that's important to recognize, as well as how they build relationships in the community. And I really don't see the pool succeeding without them. And it's hard to believe that this is even an option. So that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Young lady here in the front.
Hello, my name is Denise Everett, and I live at 6735 Franklin Woods Drive. I have lived in Traverse City for 40 years. It's a little a side issue, but I got here to teach figure skating at the Glacier Dome, which has now become Howe Arena, which has now become 2 rinks at Center Ice, which has gone fantastically well, as I had hoped that it would. I'm here to ask the commissioners a question. I've heard just bits and pieces of discussions from people that there has been an attempt to work with some, and I don't have all the facts straight, I'm sorry, to work with some businessmen and Tim Nelson at the college to develop a real complete facility that would be, I guess, part on NMC's campus, and the high school would be involved, and all of that area. It would be much, maybe a bigger area than it is right now. And my question is, I tend to want to think ahead, and that sounds like a wonderful futuristic program, but how are you going to do it if you get rid of the pool and the ice rink that's there now? So, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi. I wasn't going to do this, so it's off the top of my head. I'm praying for all of you. I realize this difficult decision. It's very, very hard. I currently serve as treasurer of the Commission on Aging, and I also serve as vice president of the Parks and Rec Board. I would like you, on the Commission on Aging standpoint, to realize that that pool is really a necessity for, I'm looking at the elderly people that need to recreate, and they can't necessarily do weight bearing, but they can do the swimming, the exercises, and so forth. To me, they're part of this community. They were here before us. I think out of respect, we need to think about them and disabilities. Now, as vice president on the Parks and Rec, I don't see any logic in opening a new pool. I mean, I do. The YMCA is wonderful, okay? And we can accommodate two pools. So what I mean is if they're opening one and we're closing this one, I don't understand at all what we're gaining. There's room for both pools, obviously. I'd like to thank Larry for bringing up about the Coast Guard using the pool. I didn't realize that. I'd like to thank Mr. Thomas for bringing up increasing the rates. I totally agree with you. We may not be able to do that for groups, but we certainly can do it for individuals. We could also work out a program that if they couldn't afford it, and I'm again referring to elderly people, that we would have something in place, stipends or something to help them. I'm not sure, but I'm sure I could figure something like that out. I know you have a really difficult job. Being in business for years, and we've had to make cuts, but the doors are still open. So I think a fair way to do that is to take a percentage across the board. Nobody wants to be cut. Maybe let your directors decide where that would be, where the cuts would be. I don't know, I mean, they have a purpose, don't they? I mean, they must know better than anybody where the cuts would be able to be made. And lastly, I just know it's a tough job, and I know you'll do the best you can. I just, thanks.
Rodetta, did you introduce yourself, or did I miss that?
I didn't, but Rodetta,
Sorry.
Rodetta Heron, 4952 County Road 633 South. Ron.
Okay, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Dada.
That young lady over here that had her hand up, yep.
Hi, my name is Pam Kerrigan. I reside at 4375 Baywood Drive. I'm sorry to sound like a broken record here for the pool. I am the board president for the Breakers. Thank you for your kind mention of the Breakers, and I need to correct Coach Kathy. We have 168 members currently swimming for the Breakers. I don't know what more to say than to our voice and keeping the pool open. Very difficult decision. I understand that. We spend a lot of time downstate at various competitions, and instead of looking at, I guess, potentially closing the pool, I've spent a lot of time expressing to Jason Jones how we can, as a community, come together to build a bigger facility, a facility that attracts loads of people from downstate to Traverse City to our beautiful area. And I don't know how we make that happen, but I guess I'd like us to look forward as to that instead of closing what we have at the present. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, can I ask you, do
Yes.
Breakers plan on continuing using Easling Pool even after the Y opens?
That is our hope. We are running into a lane crunch. We have more bodies than we have pool space. So our program is just, we've recently, to give you an example, we have high school swimmers that aren't competitive right now, but would like to remain physically fit. We have a special program, we'd like to work out with them that they don't have to join the Breakers, but they could still train. We've had to turn the girls away. We don't have the space in our pool for the time that we have it for. Just don't. We're cramming up to 8 to 10 full-size people into a lane. Trying to do butterfly is awkward. So, yes, we plan to use both. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm also here during my lunch, so.
Introduce
Kathy-
yourself, please.
Kathy Nemchik, 4384 Deerwood. And I have been utilizing this pool since I moved up here. My boys both used the pool to learn swim lessons there. They became lifeguards there. They became swim instructors there. There are some excellent lifeguards that have been there long-term. I myself also acquired a water safety instructor certification there. With a past history of being a lifeguard myself, I taught for 10 years with the handicapped children or disabled children, which is, to go along with the gentleman who was sitting here earlier, an excellent program. I took many children from a level of inability to do any kind of water activity to actually swimming the Special Olympics. I've watched the exercise group go from 5 people to well over 30 now. And then there's the evening programs with the same water aerobics. And of course, I heard the Masters group talk and the Breakers group talk. So I go there to lap swim now that I'm not teaching the disabled children anymore. And I think the pool is being utilized much more than it was when I first started working there, or when I first started participating there. And I live on the east side of town, so if I am forced to travel to the west side of town to use the Y, that would be very inconvenient. There's hotels around that offer swimming, but they're not a full-length pool, so you can't establish a good exercise routine in a small pool. The resort, being a private facility, has swim lanes, but they've now converted much of that into a play area, so you really can't utilize that for lap swimming anymore, other than designated time frames. So I think it's a big mistake to close Easling Pool for whatever your reasons are. So there you go.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll go back to the commission. Larry.
Well, as I'm going around to the townships and visiting residents around the county, I guess the first question they've asked is, how did we get here to this point where we face this deficit and we have to make, again, some major decisions? And I'd like to just spend just a quick moment just summarizing my viewpoints, so the members of the public here and the members of the public watching on TV and the media or whatever can get a sense of the direction of the past board, in which really comes forward to this board. We've seen declining revenues and assessed values over the last 5 to 6 years with the economic situation in our state, which really has reached Grand Traverse County. We've been insulated for a lot of years, but we have seen the effects up here. So assessed values in homes, both in the real estate side, the commercial real estate side and the retail side, the primary homes have gone down, as you know. That is our primary source for revenue for the county, along with some fee structures. And the county board, if I could speak on behalf of the previous boards and commissions, because we have a 2-year term, when this first started, we had no anticipation that it would continue down this same path for this amount of period of time and still have significant impacts to our budget. So we took a more optimistic view rather than making severe cuts to programs and services and to having major layoffs to our employees here at the Grand Traverse County, that we took it year by year, to be honest with you. And what we did is we had a fairly strong fund balance of about 22%, which we saved over the good years, and which got us to a AA bond rating, which are all good things that we needed to do as a county in the long run for our financial strength. And we used part of those fund balances year by year, along with some strategic cuts here and there in the budget, along with some one-time monies that the county did recognize over the past 5 to 6 years, hoping to bridge us to a point where we're at today. And so we have had some layoffs over the last 6 years. We've used part of our fund balance to help support jobs and services, which that's the purpose behind a fund balance, if you really look at it. And we engaged our consultants and our CPA and the market, Standard & Poor's, and basically they have given us a guideline of not somewhere near 18% of expenditures. So, we are at that point now. We would be concerned, I'm speaking alone, that to drop further in our fund balance and not address the structural issue of the economic times that we're in would probably have an adverse effect on our bond rating, which we have one of the strongest bond ratings in the state of Michigan for county governments, which is a AA. So we have been, I think, cautious and protective of our staff and our employees and our programs and our services year by year, trying to find ways to funding them and not have this huge cliff of layoffs and programs and services that we've delivered to the public. And we have found ways to fill these gaps over the last 5 to 6 years, and we're at a point right now where we've run out of the one-time monies. We're at a point where the fund balance, we really don't want to drop it any further because it could have a detrimental effect on the county in terms of its bond rating, its ability to borrow money, and the interest rates that we get, along with we do help our partners in the townships or the hospital when they need a bond proposal. They can go under our bond and just guarantee it and get a lower interest rate. So we help the community with our bond rating, especially with infrastructure, sewer and water, those kinds of things. So in a nutshell, I don't want to say that we have purposely kicked the can down the road, as some people would say. I think we strategically wanted to address this year by year, hoping to see if the improvement of the economy and assessed values would level off and begin to move up at a point in time where we can, use our fund balance and this one-times money and some strategic lowering of expenses and those kinds of things to the county in terms of personnel costs. We're at a point where we've shaved everything down to the point where some departments, if you lay off somebody, you basically got to close the department. And we're at a point in time where all the meat's gone and we're right at the bone and we're right at essential services. Sure, there's some unmandated services that are out there that we're funding, but those are programs that you're here for, advocating for, and that are important to the community. So, we've got to find, as hard as it's going to be and as painful as it's going to be, as difficult as it's going to be, we're going to have to find in this budget year of 2014 something close to $1 million or more in lowering the cost of government expenses as we move forward in the following years. to do something different is going to be detrimental to the county's financial position, which we are up here to protect, and that's why we get elected. So I just want to emphasize to the folks in the audience and the people that are watching on TV and the public and media, this is where we're at today was strategically placed by a number of boards hoping for a better time that really never came. And now we're at a point where we really have to seriously look at some structural changes within the county so we can move forward with having a technology plan, the state-of-the-art technology plan for our employees, and having fair compensation for our employees. We're just going to have to do it at a lower cost to the public, and we're just going to have to operate more efficiently, more smartly, and we're going to have probably less programs and services or staff members moving forward for the coming years until we see an upturn in assessed values and economic development, commercial development. The tax tribunals that have been going on throughout the state, around our area, particularly in Grand Traverse, have hit us fairly hard. In Lansing, reassessing big commercial boxes to a substantially lower rate of taxes. So we're faced with some hard decisions that we hope that we would not have to make. And strategically, we're here because we care about the people and the programs and services, and we're at a point where there's no more one-time opportunities just to fill a hole and hope for a better year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to address some of the swimmers who were at our last meeting, the swimmers that I've heard from, and the swimmers that are here. Just because one commissioner on the Parks Board, Bill Doyer, says we are going to close Easling Pool does not make it so. I have attended USA Swimming's Save a Pool conferences at my own expense. I've still got some of my stuff here. I've met with Mick and Sue Nelson, talking to them about how public pools in the United States close every day. This board does not want to close Easling Pool. How we operate it may have to change. I've had this conversation with Kathy about the master's fee, which last I heard, and I don't know if it's changed, was $10 a month for me as a master swimmer. Now, there are other ways we can do this. I am a U.S. master swimmer, which in most places in the country you have to be because your liability is covered. The fees are not $10 a month. We absolutely, Kathy, we've got to look at fees. And I've heard from commissioners up here that this.
Can I tell you what the fees are
No.
actually?
I'm saying what I did pay. Last year, my husband, for an annual membership, paid $108. He's a senior and he got a coupon on the internet. It was $108. No one up here wants to close the pool. I don't believe that anyone up here will close the pool. How we operate it may change. Maybe we can shorten summer hours. Breakers swims in the morning in the summer. Aerobics is in the morning in the summer. We've got masters swimming in the morning and afternoon in the summer. Maybe we have to look at the hours we operate. Maybe we have to change what we've done the way, we can't just keep doing things the way we've always done them. But I certainly am not in favor of closing that pool. I don't believe this board is in favor of that, and I wanted to have that opportunity to clarify that.
Dan?
Yeah, I am impressed with the pool people. Being a doctor, first thing I look at is how people look. And you all have pink cheeks, you're all in good shape. I'm impressed with that. We should be more like you. I should be more like you. I'm also impressed when Dick brought up that would you be willing to pay a little more? The pool loses somewhere around $75,000 a year, and there are some people that have crunched the numbers that say it's even bigger than that. I don't want to close that pool. I can see the beautiful things you do for the community, but I would like to see more input about how we make the pool more efficient, it doesn't cost us so much. I've been getting emails from people, and there's a lot of complaints, but very few people say, I have a complaint, but I have a suggestion how to make it better. So I'm hoping that you'll put your minds together and help us out. This is a great big crunch. It's even bigger because it's 1.5 million, but if you throw in the MERS stuff, the unfunded liabilities, it could be said it's 4.5 million. As a community, we've got a big problem to fix. So I don't want to close the pool. You're wonderful people. I'm so glad you're here. You've enlightened me and educated me. We could use your help, too.
Anybody else have any comments they'd like to make? Where would you like to go from here, commissioners?
Start with A.
Dave, do you have a question?
Well, I don't have a question. I think that, if you're going to start talking about the budget, there's a few things that, out there. I sent you a letter or a memo last Wednesday that had a couple bullet points on it, and one of the things in there was where we are today. Where we are today is maybe we ought to start over.
Yeah.
Let's start with how did we get here? We got here because there are a lot of things pressuring us, as Larry said. I mean, it's taxes, not coming in higher, continuing to maintain current services, which are in demand by various constituencies and by the public. And along the way, we, in 2001, our appropriation, our requirement to pay for retirement for our employees was $1.172 million. It was $1,172,385. In 2014, that number will be $4.2 million. We had to pay for that along the way. It's gone up year after year, and it's going to go up for the next 10 years. And for that reason, the legislature gave us an option to do pension bonding. Because that debt is not going away. It's going to keep on costing us more and more and more every year. And the legislature, seeing that and hearing the complaints of counties and cities, that there's, our pension boards, in our case MERS, has made a policy that we have to pay double every year to pay this off, and it keeps going up by very large amounts. And if we could stretch it out over a longer period of time and use the arbitrage money that would come in if you earned, for example, 8%, as MERS projects on what we're paying as we go, if we were to earn that and invest our money, we would have some arbitrage money to help offset our retirement costs. Plus, we'd stretch it out over a longer period of time, allowing us to reduce our payments for our legacy costs and pay them out over a longer period of time and maybe even save some money. That's part of what got us here. The increases in retirement, increases in health insurance, both of those were pretty key things that increased. But we also had inflationary increases and everything else, and when your taxes don't go up with inflation, then it really starts to put pressure on the budget. So, I was looking at how to solve all these problems, and I came up, with an idea that actually Larry was talking to me when I was being hired in. What do you know about pension bonds? Well, I'd been looking at them when I was in Midland, and I started working on it back in October. In fact, I talked to John Axe back in October of last year, and we didn't get our funding information from John Axe until August, but it indicated that this would make sense for us. We could reduce our pension liability, annual pension liability, at least in 2014, and make it lower going forward for several years, and offset the structural deficit that had accumulated over the last several years. And I think that one place we need to start is to talk about what Warren Kramer went through and decide whether that makes sense for us or not, because that answers all the other questions after it. If the answer is, and this goes back to August, if the answer is yes, your budget is funded, We've taken care of the other problem that came up, which is your health insurance increase of 22%, by asking employees to pay for that increase. The structural deficit is what we're facing today. And there's no magic to how you come up with cuts to the county budget. There are certain places you can cut, there are certain places you can't. In your packet, there's a list of mandated and non-mandated services, and of course, that doesn't give you, in my letter that I gave you, it doesn't say that you can't cut mandated areas. You can't cut the courts, for example, or you can't cut the prosecutor. It says that you can't cut them below a minimally serviceable level. And having gone through this exercise, Sonny is fond of mentioning 2003, where a lot of pain and gnashing of teeth occurred. A lot of those cuts have already been made. It's pretty hard to get in a little deeper. When I look at the Treasurer's Office, for example, a mandated constitutional office of county government, they have 4 people working in there. They have a vault to protect. They have lots of money flowing through there every day. And there are some days that there's only 1 person at the counter for long periods of time. That's minimally serviceable levels, I would say. So it's really hard to get another dollar out of there. And the same thing occurs in just about every other office. And my experience here has been the same as other experiences in county government. Our employees and our department heads and elected officials are very good stewards of the money that taxpayers give them. They're not blowing the money. And if there's an extra quarter in their line item, they're not finding a way to spend it. They're actually going to return it to the county, and that's how the county stayed afloat all these years. They're pretty responsible people. So, if you're going to do the pension bonds, it behooves us right now to look at that and decide whether it makes sense for us or not. It's my recommendation, it's Dean's recommendation, it's the Treasurer's recommendation that this is a good way to restructure this debt. But it's up to you to make that decision, not ours.
Comments? Sonny?
Well, I guess, as we all know, the pension bonds are an agenda item for tonight. I'm guessing what I'm trying to figure out is, David, are you asking for a head nodding session today, or do you want us to move this? We have all 7 commissioners here. We
Right.
could move it to a discussion at this point if commissioners choose to say so. We would have to add it to the agenda. It would take 2/3 of a vote to do that.
It's already on the agenda.
That's, it's not on the
Part of the
special
budget
meeting.
Part of the budget.
Kind of. So, I guess the question is, do we want to have that discussion today, or are we going to have that discussion tonight? I'm guessing it's not going to be a short discussion either way.
Sure.
But that being said, I don't know how we can discuss cuts to this budget until we determine the funding. And
What I'm suggesting is that the pension bonds were the idea to, I had 2 major pieces to the budget recommendation that I was going to make to this board. One was the employers are going to pay for their health insurance increases. The second piece was to cover your structural deficit, you ought to do pension obligation bonds, restructure that debt so that it costs you less annually, and you don't have to make cuts. If what I'm looking for is, I guess, a head nodding session that says we don't want to fix it with pension obligation bonds, or we don't feel comfortable doing pension obligation bonds, we want to make cuts. And then we can continue our discussion. But if your answer is that you're going to take our recommendation and go with pension obligation bonds to solve this deficit, then you don't need to put it, cause any more pain and angst inside the organization. I mean, you can take selective views of that, and if you want to review every departmental budget going forward, you can do that, but it's going to take you a long time to do that and to do a good job with it. So you can start that process anytime, and we can start cutting budgets as we go through them. If that's, what you want to do is cut budgets.
Sonny, do you want to?
All right, I'll do it this way. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion authorizing the insertion of a notice of intent for the County of Grand Traverse to enter retiree pension bonds, Series 2014.
Do I have a support for that motion? I'll support it.
Can I have the discussion without the motion?
Okay, we now have a motion on the table. We can have discussion. Mr. Thomas.
Well, from the beginning, when we started talking about it, I'm in favor of trying this because we've got to do something. Okay, and this looks like the best way out. However, and I supported this, but I got to tell you, I am very gun-shy of the market, and that's where we're going to be going. The market's doing great right now, and they'll probably continue to do well as long as the feds keep pumping false money into the economy all the time. But like I say, I'm gun shy. I will go along with it, but I'm half scared to death of it.
Sorry?
And while I'm talking, I might mention, and this is an altogether different subject, I'm just throwing it out. And I was reminded by a lady that was walking by my shop yesterday, and by God, yes, there is a few of them walk by way up there, but anyway, she says, you know, you're missing the boat. She says, what you ought to do is go out and look for more revenue. I said, well, what would that be? She says, hotel motel tax. And we talked about this years ago. And she's right. This is probably one of the very few places in the state that doesn't charge hotel and motel taxes. And hey, we've got something for them to come and appreciate. And I'm not going to name any cities, but I don't know why I would want to pay an extra tax to go to Flint, Detroit, or some of those other places. So it's just something to think about, a way of getting the revenue. But the bond deal, I'll go along with it, but if it goes down the tubes, oh, you can blame me.
Sonny.
Well, the pension obligation bonds, as far as I can tell, the risk there is exactly the same as the risk is with MERS. If we do not draw 8% interest, we're going to owe additional money. It's not any different. You know, if we continue to make the appropriations as MERS asks for them at the end of the actuarials, and at the end of the year we didn't make 8% money, then they're going to raise the number. That's how we got to $4.2 million in this year, guys. It's because the actuarials were based on the idea that they would earn 8% over the last several years, and they haven't done it. You know, I believe, you know, and I said last week, I believe if we sell the bonds and you have $45 million to go out and invest at one time, and you can commit those funds for a long period of time, you're going to get a higher rate of interest. And that gets us the more likelihood that we're going to see 8% or maybe even a little bit more. You know, if God's willing and the river don't rise or something like that. But, you know, that being said, the pension obligation bonds takes care of our structural deficit for 13 to 15 years, as you know, I read the charts depending on whether I look at John Axe's charts or Warren's charts last week. It doesn't, you know, we take care of that structural deficit with the assumption of the 8%. If we don't get the 8%, the risk is exactly the same as it is without selling the bonds.
That's right.
Now, as far as the budget goes, you know, and you know, we joke about it, but all these little tags are places in the budget where I think we can cut money. Can I find you $1.5 million there? Maybe, you know, depending on what we do. But those are cuts that we need to make with the departments and with the department heads and be realistic of what we have in there. That being said, we also have to remember that this is a budget. It's a living document. Every month we amend the budget, we transfer money from one place to the other. When we had trouble with our central tower a year ago, Dean goes to his little desk and he pulls his magic, and pretty soon he finds us $120,000, whatever it was that we needed. We didn't have to take it from contingency. He found it in unbudgeted or unexpended funds within the budget. There's money in this budget that we will never spend. Every one of us in the room knows that we will not spend every dime that's in this budget. That's why we budget $625,000 worth of fund balance And at the end of the year, Bonnie has money left in her budget that she turns back in. Jason has money, Jen has money, Wendy has money. All of the departments have leftover money. We don't end up expending the fund balance. We budget it every year, but we don't spend it. We budget for 100% employment. We never get a year that we'll have 100% employment. I'd be amazed if we get to 98%, you know. So there's always extra money in the budget. So you can't say, okay, I'm going to cut this budget to exactly what we're going to spend, and we're not going to spend a penny more than that, because there's just too many unforeseen things that can happen over the year. But I am supportive of moving forward with the pension bonds. That takes care of our structural deficit. But then I do want to not worry about the 2014 budget. Go back and draw us a 2014 budget based on the information that we have now. And then really work on our process for the 2015-16 budgets, whereas we sit down with each of the individual departments, look at all of the services that are provided, how much those services cost, and how many people in our community depend on them.
Well, I guess you can thank me and my bright idea about attacking the unfunded portion of the defined benefit program, not only in our county but around the state with other counties, having my affiliation with the Michigan Association of Counties. And when Dennis Aloya was here, and then when Dave got on board, I was sort of in the process of lobbying the Michigan Association of Counties and other counties to see if this was an option that was viable for us, another club in the bag, so to speak, and whether it would make sense for counties to look at this. Not knowing the details of the concept, we did take it to the legislature, we did take it to the Department of Treasury, and I think with the interest of some counties in the state of Michigan, they felt that if a county was strong enough financially with a double bond rating as we do, that something like this could work out to assist some counties. Now, as this process has continued, we're at the point where we do have the capability of bonding that portion. After listening to John Axe and Warren that came in, I guess somebody with my background of 28 years in the banking business and the financial business, I still have some level of concern in terms of going out for a bond of that amount and having and investing it fully into the market. And the types of investments that we're looking at investing it in. We're not looking at investing it in monies that the county would invest in. That would be what the treasurer would invest in, and that would be low-risk treasuries and those kinds of mixed investments that would have a lower rate of return, and the risk for principal would be minimal or zero. Depending on the length of your holdings on those investments. And I guess that's where my comfort level was if we bonded, it would go right to the treasurer, and the treasurer would invest it as she would in any other investment that the county had, and it would have practically no risk, but a very low rate of return. Now, what I understand from the administrator and from the consultants is, if we do that, that really doesn't solve our problem because they're looking for the arbitrage differential. And the difference between 8% and the borrowing of 4.5% to get us out of this thing. And I guess taking a harder look at this thing from a financial perspective, I don't have enough confidence in the market moving forward to have those kind of returns. And two, if the crash was to occur, we would see a substantial reduction in the principal portion of that. We may see that in MERS as well, in the portion we do have invested. I would rather see that we put pressure on the legislature and the governor to say, you know, we need another option. We need another option to get us out of this MERS policy decision of accelerating these amortizations on counties that are well-funded, have good bond ratings, and can sustain a financially strong payment schedule on a long-term basis to get us out of this thing. And to have MERS as a separate entity that's owned and operated by counties that invests our pension funds that we've closed off since 2001 other than the courts, dictate to all the counties in the state of Michigan that you're going to accelerate your obligation for people that are going to live 20 or 30 years or even currently employed at the county, and you're going to accelerate that amount, that accrual that's going to accrue over the next 20 to 30 years, you've got to pay off in 10 years, I think it's really unfair. I think that, you know, if MERS won't do anything, then I think the state of Michigan should be stepping up with the help of our state rep and our state senator and having the state take over the funding part or the risk part or the bonding part of where we see ourselves at with all the counties in the state of Michigan and get this thing amortized out to a proper 20-year deal. I don't think the burden should be placed on, you know, us because of the inadvertent feelings or opinions or policy of the Michigan Employment Retirement System. Because they're going to make us pay, technically, for all the obligations of our retirees, including the people that are currently working here, over the next 10 years for something that, you know, they're going to be living 20, 30, 40 years from now. So I think it's really disproportionate, and it's putting, so, you know, for those reasons, I don't really have the stomach to move forward with this bonding thing. I'd like to see another solution. I'm not really high on going through this book one by one and finding $1 million or $1.5 million. But, you know, if you take a look at $1.5 million, I mean, the easy way, back then when Dennis was here, we just sent out a memo that says, listen, everyone's got to find 3% in everyone's budget. And I don't like that concept, but this year we've not pitched that out. Everybody came in with their increases. We never did ask the departments to come in and say, hey, can you find 5 or 3% of your budget and let us know where you'd pinpoint those losses, you know, those shortfalls in your budget, and can you live with your operations with those shortfalls? We've never done that. And whoever said on this board or in the audience, we haven't given the opportunity for it, even though this is late in the game and we're in November, we have not given our department heads an opportunity to go back to their budgets and say, this is where I could come up with 3 or 5% of my budget, and we're going to kick this back in for savings rather than us going through there and slaughtering what we think is important when they run those operations on a daily basis.
I'm going to go with Chris first, Dean.
All righty.
I'll be patient.
I am too. You can go first if you want.
I'll wait.
All right. Commissioner Wheelock, you every year refer to the budget document as a living, breathing document, but it isn't. We pass it, and that's it. We make budget adjustments throughout the year. If revenue for whatever reason, cost of living index, which affects our revenue, for whatever reason, if revenue comes up short, then we go to Dean and go, you know, find a department where there's money where we can have it. We do not look at this every month as a living, breathing document. If we did, I don't think we'd be here in this particular position. I'm not going to vote in favor of the pension obligation bond motion right now, the notice of intent, primarily because I think we're doing this in the wrong order. We have labor negotiations out there, and I think we do absolutely need to take a look at this budget, line by line, department by department, and
And if you want to bring in directors, that's fine. And I may be the only one that's willing to do that line by line, and I fully respect that, other commissioners are going to disagree with me on that. But we still, even with pension obligation bonds, we still are going to have a structural deficit. All those who believe that we're going to make 8% on our retirement over the next 10 years, raise your hand and, show me where I'm going to find 8% every single year, year after year. It's not there. We still have a structural deficit. It still has to be addressed. Our expenses continue to outpace our revenues. That's not going to change. We've got revenue sharing that is coming on the horizon that we're not going to get from the state of Michigan. It isn't coming the way we were promised. Gee, there's a surprise. Thank you, state legislators. It is going to be up to us. We've got to look at the services that we provide and how we provide them. And if we have to change how we provide them, I believe that there are ways that we can keep services to the public without impacting, and just look at how we provide them. I think there are efficiencies here. I think that has to be looked at first, not the easy out, which is pension obligation bonds.
Dean?
I was not going to hand this out until tonight, but since Dave was able to move this up to the front of this meeting, thank you. This is something that I prepared this morning regarding the retiree pension bonds. I wanted to go on record. Dave mentioned that that was our recommendation. It is also my recommendation, and I put that in writing to you. I don't expect you to take a lot of time to study this right now. I have been working with John Axe. There are 3 schedules attached to it that shows how it would work. Keep in mind that the debt service that's attached is a projected debt service schedule at this point. And you can see, though, what I wanted to do here was document just some of the key points. And before we turn the page, I do want to walk you through this. And I want to just, I guess, go back to what Commissioner Inman said. The state legislature did give us a tool to deal with this. It was Public Act 329 of the Public Acts of 2012. That was the legislation that would allow us to do this if we had a AA bond rating. The state of Michigan does not have any direct oversight over MERS. They're a separate legal entity. They used to be part of the state. I'm not saying that that's not an option, but there's no direct control or influence by the state of Michigan over the MERS retirement system. But anyway, if you go back to my cover memo, the information does support some of the key reasons for considering the pension bonds, and I do hope that you take a serious look at this, and it is my recommendation that we do this. I've been your finance director for a good long time, and I think I've got a pretty good track record here of managing this budget, and maybe it's time for me to go out on a limb here, and that's what I'm doing today. I've heard a lot of people over the last couple of months. I've wrestled with this for a long time, and Dave and I talked about this morning. It is our recommendation to you to do this, to balance our budget. Commissioner Inman, I heard from you for a number of years that we had 2 big issues to deal with, our health insurance and our retirement obligation. We have been managing this to the best of our ability. MERS had last year, when we learned that we could get off of the 2-year increasing acceleration on the amortization, Dave and I did that this year. We're on a 15-year straight line. That still doesn't help us solve this increasing payment to our retirement system. But the pension bonds would do that for you. It levels out. It allows us to use a debt obligation to level that payment. We're going to fully fund this. And another thing that, just to be clear on, we're not going to invest these funds in the market. We're going to give these funds to the retirement system. That's really the only option for us unless we go out and set up a trust to manage this. We can't play with the stock market or, invest these funds and lose. That's not the plan. Right? The plan and the notice that you'll have tonight does clearly indicate that the proceeds of the bond issue would go to the retirement system. And I do apologize, I have a cold, so hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. But so with the debt service, it's a tool. It's a tool that we've considered. It does demonstrate or show that we can reduce our annual payment to the retirement system, which if you do turn to the last page, which is Appendix D, the first column shows over time, over the next 20 years, what our payments to the MERS retirement system will be. You've seen this before. These numbers have not changed. Initially, we were looking at a 15-year amortization. This is a 20-year look, and the bond payments are spread out over the same period. But that middle column shows what the debt service would be compared to the first column, which are the payments to the retirement system. And the third column then shows the savings, which are real savings that will be built into the budget that will benefit not only the general fund, but some of our other funds as well, including our Department of Public Works, the IT fund, all of the funds that have personnel costs, all of the courts, the sheriff's office. And the bottom line, it's a $10.6 million constant dollar savings over 20 years. That's a real number. And that's something that you can build back into your budget and you can manage rather than having to continue to make cuts every year solely to cover your increasing payment to the retirement system, which we have no control over at this point. If I could control that or ask MERS to put us back on a 20-year plan, I would have done that. That would be done. That's not an option for us. Okay, going back to the cover memo. The level debt service also reduces our annual cash flow requirements. That's also a good thing. And with that flexibility, we have the ability to manage our annual budget that'll be a lot easier for us than trying to build in the increased payment. And Dave and I are not making any statement here, and we have never done that. We have never said that this takes away the risk of the 8% investment return assumption that the retirement system uses. That's a given. But we should be able, when we look at this, we should be able to use the same set of facts, the same set of givens that they're using in their analysis. In all likelihood, they're probably not going to hit 8% return. But every year, that risk, that increased unfunded liability is still there for us, and we're going to have to make that up. But when you have some flexibility in your budget, you're going to be better able to absorb that than you are when you're trying to cover the increased payments to the retirement system. And the fifth or sixth point on my cover is the fact that we already have heard, and that was verified by John Axe, that our bond rating agencies will view the pension bonds as a favorable item when they look at our, anytime we go out to issue bonds. It's just, we're being very responsible. We're paying off an unfunded obligation. That's a good thing for any bond issue that we will have in the future. And one of the things that's really hard to quantify, Dave and I have asked MERS, the retirement system, to give us something in writing that would tell us why we would want to invest the bond proceeds with them. That's our only option unless we go out and set up a trust. And that's right now what we prefer to do, but we're asking them to tell us what benefits that could potentially have for us. The retirement system, Sally Dreves, who's on the MERS board, last week they were dealing with the potential for this UAL to be overfunded because of municipalities doing the pension bonds. And their concern is that when they're overfunded, and in fact in 2013 I think they're on track to have a 15% return on their total fund. So that would mean that when they do our valuations next year, our UAL will actually go down, which means we're going to be overfunded just like that. The position they're taking on that is that they don't want us to reduce our normal cost because this liability is made up of a normal cost and an unfunded liability. They're not going to allow us to reduce our payments to cover the normal cost if we're in an overfunded situation. I'm 110% in favor of that. We're trying to get ahead of the game with funding this pension plan. So, yeah, maybe I'm coming across a little strong today, but I am 110% behind this. You had me and Larry and your former treasurer go down to Lansing last year to kick this process off, to get this law, this legislation in place. We did that. Give me the option to work with this and to use this to manage our budget going forward. If not, you're going to be dealing with this problem for the next 15 years. Every year you're going to be saying, I got to make more cuts to cover the payment to the pension system. I don't want to have to do that, and I don't believe you do either.
Just one comment on that is the fact that if MERS doesn't make 8% and they only make 4%, our payments go up.
Correct.
So this is leveling that off.
Without
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm putting on the screen, if I can get this TV to work. This is the growth of $100 since 1991 with the MERS system. And you'll notice that the 8% is the red line, and the blue is the actual, what they actually earned. So you'll see that it dips below the line from time to time, but the Great Recession of 2008, 2007, 2008 is that big plunge in the blue line there. And it's pretty much kept on pace, and what hasn't happened is it hasn't crossed over that red line yet. So MERS is actually 14% on an actuarial basis. They were at 121% last year. They were 120%. Their expectations were out of whack with what actually happened by 21%. Now they're 14% because of the returns that they got in 2012. 2013 is heading for about 15%. So it's a good, it's likely that it's going to cross that red line beginning in 2014, and once we get our 2013 valuation. We are going out, what we're proposing is to go out based on the market value of assets, which takes our $41 million that's in the bank right now to pay for these legacy costs, and it values them at the market rate, not at the actuarial rate, which is 14% higher. And I've got a number of things right out of our actuarial report that you can see that I want to show to you. This is a page out of our actuarial report, and I don't think you can really read that too well, but I'm going to read a couple pieces of it. And it says that as of December 31st, 2012, the actuarial value of assets is 114% of market value, down from 121% in 2011. This means that that meeting the actuarial assumption in the next few years will require an average annual market returns that exceed the 8% investment return assumption. Okay, so your do-nothing option is based on greater than 8% earnings. You understand that, right? Right. The column on the left, column 1, is projected based on 14% over the 8%. All right, you're going to get that 14% back. It's the actuarial value of your assets that are the $41 million you currently got in the bank. Okay? What we're doing is we're saying we should go out for bonds based on the market value, assuming that that 14% is not going to be made up. So it's a very conservative projection. You understand? Mm-hmm. Very conservative. Plus the fact that actuaries by nature are very conservative. When they take your worst case scenario for how long your people are going to live and what's going to happen in the future. But they are using an 8% return on investment. Here it says, and I want you to understand that it's smoothed over a 10-year period. So that big 25% drop that occurred in 2008 is smoothed out, and it's still a part of the smoothing process over the 10-year period that they use to calculate your investment earnings. They take all your investment earnings, and instead of giving you credit for, like this year, 15%, or, whatever it was last year, I mean, well over 8%, it doesn't go up by that. It goes up by 1/10 of 11% and 1/10 of 15%. And it's averaged over the 10 years. Until we get past that 25% drop that occurred in 2008, which is 2018, oh, by the way, you know, your numbers are going to drop as a result of getting rid of 2008 as a smoother in the middle of your investment projections. So what you will actually owe to MERS will probably drop. And it's going to drop, you know, but if you take out bonds, you're going to pay the bond payment. You will know what your bond payment's going to be. You don't have to worry about what your projection's going to be. And if it earns, on average, over the 20-year period that you have these bonds, less than 8%, say it earns 7%, your MERS schedule is off by that same number. You're going to have to pay that extra dollar. You know, if it's that extra 1%, you're going to have to pay that. When MERS gives you a new schedule next year, it's going to include the extra buck that you're going to have to pay to cover that 1% difference. So doing nothing or going with bonds and not earning 8% has no difference. It's just like assumptions to get to the same place. So we're bonding based on a similar set of assumptions. So it's hard to, you know, fathom this, but I wanted to show you also, that's what the returns look like over time. You know, graphically going, and to the left side of the screen, that's the latest, and to the right side is 1993 and 1992. And the red bars are 8%, and this is the blue lines of the actuarial. It's just another way of showing what you saw before. This is the amounts. If you can see, I'm going to try and blow this up a little bit for you. But 2013, 9.4%, 2012, 11.6%. You'll see that there's that 25% drop in 2008 that I talked about. You'll notice that in 1994, we only earned 0.35, but then we earned 23 the next year. And in 2000, 2001, 2002, the recession, all 3 years were negative, but then we got a 24.5% increase in 2003, a 14% increase in 2004. This is the way the market behaves. It's not going to be 8% next year, I can guarantee it. It's going to be something different than 8%. It might be more, it might be less. But over a 20-year period, MERS has generated 9-point-something%. Over a 30-year period, 9-point-something%. And right now, our bonds are cheap because the Federal Reserve is holding those rates artificially low. So that's how we came to the conclusion this is the right thing to do. This is a smart time to do it, actually. And if you think that the market is maxed out, we can wait to sell the bonds. We need the approval to sell the bonds, but the day that we set to actually go out and get the money, we can wait. We can wait for a correction in the market if you want to do that. Everybody's telling us you might not want to wait too long because it just might keep going up. There's a lot of money on the sidelines still. So, any financial consultant, including Warren Kramer and John X, will tell you, don't play the market. Just do it.
Make a decision.
Move forward. And if the bottom drops out of the market, bottom's going to drop out for us anyway. This won't change this analysis. You get it? I mean, we'll have to make the debt payment, plus we'll have to make an extra $10 payment to cover the part that we missed in our projection. Or, if we don't do bonds, we're going to pay what we have to pay on this list, plus another $10. And that's the way it's going to be. We're going to pay that extra $10 whether we do bonds or not. But it's likely, because of where we are in history right now, that we're going to be overfunded. We will still have to make our debt payment, but we're going to be overfunded at MERS for quite some time as a result of doing this, because of the way it's turned. Because next year is 15%. Unless the bottom drops out of the market between now and January 1st, the returns on investment are going to be credited at, we're going to have 1/10 of 15% added to our number, which is going to be greater than the 8% they projected. It's going to make it better. So actually, we're going to be overfunded next year if we do this.
Dan?
Thank you, both of you. That's a lot of work, and I understand what you're saying. I believe I do get it.
Great.
On I'd be much more in favor of doing this bond thing if we first did the work that we've been saying. That is, we have, for instance, the department heads who are non-union people that have come to us and said, look, let us help. We know stuff. We have Sonny and myself that's going through this thing line by line, and we can see places where maybe we can save some money. I'm afraid if we don't do this work at looking at the budget together and reducing what we can, that if we do this bond thing, we'll lose the will to do it later. What I'd rather see us do is do what we can to reduce our costs and then borrow less. I know all of us are tired. This bond is an easy way out. We wouldn't have to do the work. Let me ask you this, Dave. If we did get the bond, would we still try to negotiate with the union the same amount?
Yeah, that's a completely separate
Separate
problem.
from this. Okay.
That is addressed, but in a completely different way.
I know, we're saying that we have to decide the bond first, and then we just all quit. We wouldn't try to pare down the budget.
I don't agree with that. The fact is, as far as I'm concerned, we got here from a number of different things. We also have to remember the things that we did that have made this bitter pill not quite as bitter as it could have been. When MERS gave us the opportunity to freeze our contribution for 3 years, Grand Traverse County was the first county to do that. Dean and Dennis and Larry and others were a big piece of that decision to be able to get us to freeze the 3 years. When the government or when the legislature took up the discussion to allow the pension bonds, Grand Traverse County was right in the front of the argument to make that happen. Larry, you say that you want the legislature to do something to help us with this. They did. They gave us the opportunity to sell pension bonds. I may not trust MERS. For a lot of reasons, I'm not sure that I trust MERS, but I'm not sure that I trust the Michigan State Legislature or the state of Michigan to handle my money any better. But I will, from as far as your question, Dan, I will guarantee you I will be here every time we want to talk about this budget and making cuts to this budget until it's done. But I don't want to be under the gun to have us a balanced budget that we're required by law to have by January 1st. We can make some of those cuts even during the middle of the year if we need to. If we deem that we want to eliminate a service or when we want to do something different, we can make that decision at any time. Takes a vote of 4 of us.
Charlie, we haven't heard from you.
Tell you where I'm at with it. Dick makes some great points, as does Chris, Larry, and Dave. We have this Act 229 of 2012, allows this bonding to get us out of this situation in other municipalities. It's essentially putting a guarantee on people's pensions, and it's putting it on the public's back. There's a lot of people out there that lost pensions, lost benefits. They did not have the state come to their defense and come up with some bonding method. I think there's more equity in this than just the public paying for a bond. We have current employees, we have retired employees. Larry's point is excellent. The state should do more. And then we have our county. This does not show equity to anybody that has it, or excuse me, this does not put any burden on anybody other than the taxpayer. I think there's other parties here that could come forward so we do not have to borrow this exorbitant amount of money. That's where I'm at with it. I cannot vote for this as presented.
Chris?
Sonny, you mentioned that 3-year freeze, and I have to tell you, I argued against that every year we did it because it was can kicking. we've got to take a look at this budget line by line, and I'm more than willing to sit down with you and your sticky tabs. We have to do it. And so, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Dean, you had a comment?
Well, on the, if you're going to go through the budget, just because I spend quite a bit of time in the budget process with the departments and with Dave, they do come in, we meet with them. If you're going to do that, those departments need to be here. They are the most able and capable of answering whatever questions you might have. And I think in fairness to them, and I will go on record again, is saying that, you know, you have Dave and I here to do a job. I feel we've done our job. I feel the departments have done their job. I'm not saying that you couldn't cut 1,000 here or 1,000 there, but the budgets that we brought to you have already done a majority of that. But I guess all I'm asking, if you're going to do that, make sure those departments are here so they can answer your questions. I think that's the only way you'll get good feedback and I guess a discussion or an answer as to what's in those amounts that were requested and ultimately recommended by Dave.
I haven't said much, but, you know, when I first got involved with this, I wasn't sure I wanted to go for this particular part. But the more I got to thinking about it, the more I felt, I don't think we have an option. I really feel that we have an obligation of $44 million at this point. If I have a house that I have mortgaged at $44,000, and I'm paying 8% interest, and I go out and I can find out that I can borrow that money at 4%, I'm going to go to the 4%. I'm going to change my liability. And I'm not changing it anywhere on my books. I'm just changing it how I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay 4%. I'm going to flatten out my payments instead of, I think they called them ARMs for mortgages. And all of a sudden, those ARMs created an environment where people had to continue to increase their payments. MERS is an ARM. It's continually increasing our payments because they can do that and because we're underfunded. We have got to be able to say that business sense-wise, that we're better off to flatten our payments, borrow it at 4%, and then we protect ourselves from all of the ups and downs of where MERS is going to go. And it will, I guarantee you, that MERS will have years that it won't make 8%. And those years that it doesn't make 8%, we're going to be cutting another $100,000 to $500,000 out of our budget. Every time that happens, they're going to be coming back. We're going to kick the can down the road for other commissioners if we don't do this bond. Granted, there may be some areas that we want to be able to go in and look at it. But you have to remember, you guys may have all the ideas in the world, but you have to have 4 votes in order for those budget programs to be cut. Can you always get those 4 votes? And every time you go through a line item to determine whether or not you want to cut this department or that department. You may not have those 4 votes. When it all comes down, everything comes out with 3 to 4, 4 to 5, or 4 to 3, 4, 3, 3, 4, whatever. And you got that kind of a split. And pretty soon you get all done with every department head you come down, and you don't have consensus to cut anywhere. You've got the idea, you got the thought, you got the encouragement, but you don't have the consensus to be able to make it happen. That's the thing that you don't have right now when you start looking at line item by line item by line item. Your idea is one thing, your idea is another thing, your idea is something else, my idea may be something else. We may not always agree. But I look at, we have hired the best people that we could possibly hire. We've hired Dean, he's been here for how many years, 20 years?
Working on 24.
24 years. We've hired Dave. We said, Dave, you're the man that we want to have leading our organization. Both of them have come forward to us with this plan and said, with our background, with our knowledge, with all the research that we've done, we don't think this is the easy way to do it. We think this is the only way to do it. And we want your support to be able to follow what their recommendations are. And I would encourage each and every one of you to stop and think about where that is at and how you really want to vote to be able to make this happen. And I like the idea that they said, we don't have to sell these bonds December 1st. We don't have to sell them in January, but we should, because we should get that money, get it into MERS, and you know what? 15 years down the road, this commission is going to be sitting with excess money. And we can't continue to cut ourselves out of this budget. All you gotta do is look at these figures. Next year, $690,000 is the difference. That's a huge difference. You know, the next year is $712,000. Next year is $900,000. The next year it's $1 million. It goes up to $2.3 million that we're saving out of our budget. Saving. That's money that we don't have to worry about where it's at. The projections are that we're going to have another 10,000 people in our community in the next 5 to 10 years. That's going to be an increase in property taxes. That's going to be an increase in demand for our services. That's going to be an increase in everything that we have to do. We're going to have to hire more employees because we're going to have to continue to meet those demands. It's a critical piece. We got to stop thinking about today, and that's why I've been trying to hammer on, I want to see a 2 and 3 year budget, because that 2 and 3 year budget is really going to tell us where we're going to go. When Dave did that spreadsheet, it was awakening for me, because I was very impressed and I was scared about where the county was going to go. And if we don't look at that 3 year budget and be able to look at that and figure out, and if we don't pass this resolution, shame on us, because we're going to be putting our county, our citizens at risk by not doing so. That's my comments. Sonny.
Plenty of folks to talk.
General fund budget's $38 million. 80% plus is personnel costs. The only way you're going to cut $1.5 million out of this is to eliminate personnel. The only way you're going to be able to eliminate personnel is you eliminate programs that you provide services to somebody. I don't care. We can talk about it any way you want, that we can cut the money out without cutting services. Bullshit. It can't happen. You are going to have to cut services to somebody. We've got hundreds of programs that this county operates. There is someone in our community that depends on every single one of those programs. So if you sit here and you think that we can cut $1.5 million out of this budget without affecting citizens in our community, you're nuts. It can't happen. The only way we can cut $1.5 million out of this budget, we're not going to provide service to somebody. I've told you for years. I sit here, and I've been here a long time. But the fact is, if we're going to provide a service, we're going to do it right. If we can't afford to do it right, we probably better not do it. So if you think you can cut $1.5 million out of this budget without eliminating services to some of these people in this room or within this community, you're crazy. Someone's service is going to be eliminated if we cut $1.5 million out of this budget. We're being told by the county administrator, the county finance director, the county treasurer, and at least a couple different financial people that we've brought in to consult on this, the smart thing to do for you is to move forward with the pension obligation bonds. I don't understand why we're even having all this extra discussion. You know, we hire these people, we ask them to come in to give us best advice because we don't necessarily have all of the answers. But what answer I do know is if you want to cut $1.5 million out of this budget, you have to decide what the services you're going to eliminate, because we can't do it otherwise.
Larry.
Well, you want options? I mean, there are some options. We've never thought or talked about the impact of a Headley rollback. Do we need to go out to the public and say, here's where we're at, and every year our tax rate that we charge the county goes down and down and over 20 years, or the last 10 years, the last 20 years, they're paying a lower percentage rate due to the Headley rollback situation. So my question to staff is, if we went out, this is one, and I have a second one. If we went out to the public and said, we are going to request a Headley rollback to get us back to the original tax rate that we had for Grand Traverse County. And you have to reflect that we've grown 10,000 people in the last 10 years. And the effect on the Headley rollback has been huge on Grand Traverse County, on the revenue side, okay, along with the dropping of assessed value. So I'd like to know before I vote, I'm not prepared to vote yes on this now, but I'd like to know if we went back and said, can we make a case to the public that we need a Headley rollback and establish that rate and what that differential would be on our budget? It might be the differential we're looking for. Item 2, if you are telling me we have a 10-year cash flow problem on the MERS payment, why do we have to bond the full amount of the unfunded portion?
Thank you.
Why can't we bond the cash flow differential for the next 10 years, which is going to be a third of that, invest it, will cover our cash flow, and then when the spike goes down, that spike there will begin to even out, maybe a little higher over the next following 10 years. I just want another viewpoint that says if we don't bond the full amount, this is just my idea, is there a way we can bond the cash flow differential to get our bond payment, to get our debt service down on that MERS program for the next 10 years, bond a third of what we really need, and then when they said, here's our graph with MERS, it goes up, and then there's in 10 years or 12 years, and then it spikes down to nothing. Why can't we cash flow the differential to that point here and pay that differential, the smaller portion, over a little above what the spike would be on the tail end? So my question is, why can't we bond and the cash flow rather than the full amount? I just want another set of eyes on that thing. I have a lot more comfort level on a smaller bond and cash flowing it for the 10 years and taking care of the rest of the following end of the 10 years. Instead of paying nothing for the last 10 years, I'd rather pay a little bit more and cash flow the thing out rather than bonding the whole amount out.
Dan?
I still stick, I think we owe it to our citizens to do what we can do. No, we can't maybe get a $1.5 million out of this or whatever it was that Sonny said, but we might be able to get $500,000 out of it or $300,000. I'm not saying I won't do a bond, but I like to bond less, like Larry says. I can't support this right now unless we do the work we're supposed to do first.
Dean?
Well, I'm going to address Larry's comment. The reason you won't, or you wouldn't want to bond for 25% of the amount is simply when you look at the analysis, you don't realize the savings. I mean, one of the reasons that the state gave us this tool was so that we could stabilize our budgets. And, your cash flow, a smaller bond issue, if you go back to the first schedule that has I'm going to just reiterate the fact that we have a $80 million liability with the retirement system if we make the scheduled payments. And there's no crystal ball on that. Every year, this will be looked at again with evaluation. If you only bond for part of the debt, the $44 million, UAL at this point, you're only going to realize the pro rata share of those savings, which is on Appendix D. So if it's 25%, we can schedule this out on a spreadsheet. You're going to get 25% of the savings in your annual budget. If it's 50%, you get 50% of the savings. You know, you ask us to give, you know, to come back with a plan, our recommendation on the budget. That's what we did initially. If you're changing the set of rules on us now, I'm all for that, but the bottom line is by the end of December, you have to adopt a budget, and the bonds are the tool to do that. So I know I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but that's what you pay me to do, and that's my recommendation. And I would recommend you bond the full amount because that takes care of the UAL. And that was also, if you're going to bond, that's the reason. I guess I'm not thinking clearly. The legislation requires you to fully fund that unfunded actuarial liability. You can't bond for 25% of it.
That's why I wanted about that.
You have to demonstrate that your plan will fully fund that liability. That's the reason we can't issue bonds for less than the full amount.
So, I think the other challenge that you're going to run into is you're borrowing money at 2.5% right today. You're not going to borrow money cheaper than that. And if, you know, if the state or the feds or whatever gets involved with this thing and the interest rates start to climb, which I understand that's what all the projections are, interest rates are going to climb. Okay. You can't borrow money any cheaper than you can today. That's why, that's another reason you want to do it today rather than wait, kick the can down the road. You know, when you start looking at this, guys and gals, this is a huge challenge coming at not just this year, but it's for the next 10 years. And if we don't do this today, the next 10 years, our budgets, we will not have officers on the ground. I can guarantee you, if you don't do this, you're going to have to cut a lot of officers, and we demand those officers. We put it in our plan that we want to have a safe community. You start looking at all those things that we put into it. We want to value our employees. We want to make sure that we're a safe environment. We want to make sure this community is a place that people want to come to. They want to stay. They want to live. They want to raise their children. That's your plan. If you try and go through and cut this budget, you're going to tell everybody in the world, don't come here. Because we're not going to provide the services and we may not have the safe community. Sorry, we're not interested in you coming. And I don't want to go there. Dave?
I also want to point out that this is, the Board of Commissioners is a policy board. It's a policy making. It's to look at what the county is taking, they're getting county tax dollars, and they have to decide how they want to spend those. And the idea of going through departmental budgets, I have no problem with that. It takes a long time to do that, to do a good job with it. And I would propose that if you want to do that, you're not going to do it between now and December 31st.
Right.
You cannot possibly do it. It's something that takes time. You're going to have to call in departments. You're going to have to schedule it out. I have already talked to a few commissioners about the idea of putting an agenda together that talks about staffing, budgets, things that are on the horizon for these departments, the pressures they're feeling, requests that they have made and requests that have not been funded, and requests that they have not even made because they knew they wouldn't be funded. I mean, you're going to hear all that when you meet with a department over their budget, no matter which one it is. And we've got if you look at your budget document, there's a one-page summary of your general fund. If you go through all those and then you add resource recovery and a number of others, you're going to find it's going to take some time to get through that list. And you can get them all in here, and we can put them on an agenda. We can go to Public Health and Safety, RM&A, Ways and Means. We can schedule 1 or 2 every night for the next 6 months. And then we will be at, June of 2015, ready to embark on departments submitting their budget requests, and you will have a pretty good idea of what's in those budget requests because you will have talked to all those departments. That's the way to do it if you want to do it, that way. And as a policy board, I have no problem with you learning all that stuff between now and June. I mean, I think it's a good idea. Do it. But if to do it under the pain of, well, let's not do this because we really want to put the pressure on and cut everybody first before we find all that out, I just think that's ill-advised. I think you should, lay out a plan and then execute it. And I think that's a viable plan, what I just mentioned to you. These pension bonds, they are the magic bullet for this particular budget problem that has been created over a long period of time. And most of the problem comes from this particular thing. It started at 1.2 million we were paying or 1.1 million in 2001, and now here we are 12 years later, and it's 4.2 million going up to 6 million in the next 10 years. So it really does make sense to address the exact problem, just like it was made sense to address the deficit that was created as a result of health insurance increases, to ask the employees to cover that. I mean, the punishment fits the crime, I guess. It's just the way it is. But it also gives you the flexibility to move forward with a plan rather than starting a really difficult process and trying to do it in an abbreviated time frame.
Larry, to your point about going back for Headley rollback, no way in hell for me. I'm sorry, not interested.
I just want to know the number.
I'm sure it's over $4 million.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to do a complete rollback.
But
right.
Everybody I've heard said, don't increase my taxes.
Right.
I can't do any more. I'm paying as much as I can. Don't be giving it to me. All you got to do is look at the college, look at the school millage. I'm pleasantly surprised that we went for the road millage. But I don't see any other organization getting any kind of increase in funding. You're going to be lucky to keep the funding that you currently got. But I'm sorry, I can't go with a Headley rollback. Especially when I can borrow money a whole lot cheaper today, and I don't have to put it on the backs of the taxpayers. I don't have to increase my taxes. I don't have to do that. I can do it right here by doing these pension bonds, and I got it all taken care of. Especially that. And the public's going to know that, and they're going to tell you, I'm not giving you any more money in taxes because you could have fixed the problem and you didn't.
Well, that's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear him say that.
I'll guarantee you hear it.
But if it's $4 million for a Headley rollback, we don't need to do the Headley rollback all the way to the top of the tax rate.
But
it might be a smaller incremental rate that the taxpayers might be able to stomach to keep services going here in the county and officers on our road.
Not if you can do it without going on taxes.
Well, the public might not be all excited about us bonding $40 million either.
I think they are, so Sonny, you have a referendum.
Well, we can sit here and beat this to death, but we've probably already heard all the points. But the bottom line is, we can make the decision to sell the bond. And contrary to what you said, Charlie, that doesn't put it on the taxpayer's back. If I go to a Headley rollback or something like that, that absolutely puts it on the taxpayer's back. But if I can do this internally with a bond issue, and then the commissioners have to manage their budget properly to make the payments, that's not putting it on the taxpayer's job. That's allowing us to do our job.
Chris.
Well, we haven't done it to date, Sonny.
I'm not going to completely agree with that either.
So, Charlie.
Just for a second, with respect to Headley, as our property taxes or SEV start increasing, Headley could impact that also, could it not?
It's going to keep going down.
Going forward.
It's going to keep going down.
So, which would slow revenue growth that way.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Headley works, it's on existing properties.
Yeah.
It says that
The level we are now.
you can't go up in higher than 5% or inflation, whichever is less.
Correct.
But it does not apply to new properties. So with all the new construction that occurs, that's why you can get 5 and 7% increases in your taxable, your value, your revenue. But your existing properties are held
By
low
Headley, correct.
according to Headley. It's when new properties are built, those are added and they become new numbers that generate new money.
But even though,
Here in Grand Traverse County, you're lucky enough to have new development
Something
to that, that comes in pretty strong.
but the point is, as the economy quote-unquote improves, SEVs increase, we're still going to be encumbered a little bit by Headley as far as revenue.
For existing properties, yes, it
Exactly.
will be held down. If property values go up by 5% and inflation's 3%, we're only gonna get 3%. It's gonna roll our
That's my
millage
point.
rate back.
That's right.
I mean, my taxes have gone down every year.
And Grand Traverse County is, the revenue in Grand Traverse County from taxes is lower by over $4 million.
Mine have not.
I don't know what the exact number is, but Dean can get it
Do
for
you
us
live in
fairly
Garfield
quickly.
Township?
Over $4 million since Headley took effect.
Good for Garfield.
Dan?
I thought this, I brought this up when we first talked about this bonding issue back in the beginning. And I said, I don't want to be the guy that makes the $44 million decision, but I could be today.
Yep.
So I want more time to think about this. There's a pressure on to make the decision right damn now, and I ain't gonna do it. I need time to think about $44 million loan. So I'm not gonna support it. That doesn't mean that I won't later. But I wanna talk to you guys, I wanna talk to my constituency. I'm not gonna pull that trigger right now.
Larry?
Just, I guess I'm at the same point where Dr. Dan's at. If we're on the floor and we're going to vote on this, it's going to be no now, and I need more time to think about it. I also want to look at other options. And I want to have staff come back and say, if we had to ask the public for a Headley rollback, what would be the differential to get us through this hoop that we would have to ask the taxpayers to help us with? It could be so small and so incremental, the public might say, that's the best solution. We don't know unless we ask them. I would just ask if we could get staff to do that for us.
So I have a procedure question. Don't have an attorney here, but if we vote this and it votes down,
You're done.
We're done?
60 days.
So it's 60 days before we bring it back?
Unless somebody from the opposite side brings it up.
From the opposite side brings it up and brings it back. But how many do you need to do that? One or two?
Just one.
The motion maker has to.
The motion maker, just one.
Motion
You would
second.
only need one of the people that were in the majority.
Or just withdraw the motion for now, right?
Well, we could move to table.
We can move to table it too, and not do a motion today. So.
I'd make that motion.
You're gonna make a motion to table it?
I don't think you can make a motion to table a motion.
We're on a motion.
You can just withdraw the motion.
Let's do that.
No, you can.
You can't table a motion.
No.
Not like Sonny would
You could table
motion.
you could table the agenda item to another meeting, or to defer to another meeting. Tabling means
Where's
that
Mr.
you're going
Cooney
to.
when you need him?
Robert's rules
You table the
mean
issue, which means you don't vote on the motion, but the motion remains there.
That's what
table,
I'm thinking.
but the definition of tabling under Robert's Rules of Order is you can table a motion because you want to address another issue to the public. But the tabling has to come back at that meeting.
Okay.
All right? That's the only way a
think you're right.
tabling works,
He's right.
according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah.
If you don't, you either have to withdraw the motion, or you can defer the topic to another meeting.
Okay.
Those are your options.
Okay. Now, the next question I have is if we don't do something here, we're gonna have a discussion tonight's meeting. That's not gonna be enough time for anybody to get any of their answers, I'm sure. We need to have some sort of a solution before the end of November. We got a week and a half.
Why the end of November? What?
Because if we wait and do this at the end of December to approve a budget, then the day after that, our staff has to implement. And that's not enough time. That's really putting the pressure on the staff, because they're not going to be able to make all those adjustments to be able to do it. So, we are under the gun, and we have to get this thing taken care of.
Call the motion.
Well, which is it? Call me, or is it?
Well, it's up to the motion maker
Okay.
who wants to do it.
I just wanted to point out that the pension bond resolution it starts a 45-day requirement. It's not the final vote on this. It is to allow the public to have a 45-day referendum period in which they can collect signatures and force it to the ballot. Okay? And if they don't, if no one puts together that, or they fail to collect enough signatures, then you are allowed to pass the resolution to go out for bonds. But you have to wait 45 days. That's what this resolution is about. This is about a 45-day referendum period. It is not the final, we are going to do this. We are going to approve bonds, or approve going out for bonds. It's really important to note that, because I think everybody thinks that this is the end of it. And it really, there's another step beyond this. But Herb is right. I mean, we really do have to put the budget, we have to balance the budget, and we can do that in one of several ways. One is to, say that our intention is to go out for pension bonds and then construct the budget, have Dean go back in and move the money out of this miscellaneous contingencies account that's got a negative $1 million in it and spread it into the retirement budgets so that those numbers go down by $1 million and the budget is balanced. Other way you can do it is you can suspend or waive your rule on an 18% fund balance and take $1 million and put it in fund balance and balance your budget with $1 million in savings, which you may or may not spend by the end of the year, but that's a way of balancing your budget. Another thing you can do is you can, make cuts to positions and programs and line items and whatever you want to do, but you have to have a methodology for getting there and, be able to come up with the right number at the end. And I can do it a number of ways. I mean, Dean's already gone through the line item budgets. I went through the revenue side, went through the general fund expenditures. We've gotten a bunch of cuts out of the health department already, and they're squeaking. They actually probably gave up more than they really wanted to. We can find more cuts. I mean, and we can go back to the way I could have balanced this budget easily by getting rid of all the IT, getting rid of all the capital, and doing exactly what was done in the past. We can do that and balance this budget tomorrow. But you still have your problem. You still got your $1 million structural deficit if you cut those things.
What is 17 million compared to the expenditures? What is that percentage? You got a calculator?
A little less than that.
Well, if we got $18 million in our fund balance, and then we changed the resolution to take it to 17 million, what is $17 million divided into our expenditures projected for 2014?
It's not 17 million, it's 18%.
18% of 37.
18%.
What's the number?
I understand that. I'm saying, what would be 17%?
$8 million fund balance.
17%.
Or,
Yeah.
let's just take it the other way, like you said. Let's take it, if our fund balance is 8, let's take 7 million
I know what you're
and
talking-
divide it into the expenditures. What is that?
What you'd have to do is take 18% of the $37 million budget.
That's exactly right.
That's what you gotta have left in your fund balance,
Our fund
Unless you
If we
change
don't
the fund
change it.
balance.
unless you change the rule.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't take care of the unfunded pension liability.
I know,
fix
but
the
what he's
structural
saying is, instead of making all the decisions in 1 week, if we use the fund balance, we've got 6 months to make those decisions.
But on the same token, if we pass this resolution that has been proposed, at the end of January, we got till the end of January before we make that decision.
I understand it, but what I'm saying is, because some counties are using 15%, 16%, 17%. If we take $1 million out of our fund balance, and that buys us, at least on paper, in the budget, 6 months, rather than 1 week, to go through this book, as Dr. Dan said, and Chris has said, and to evaluate these other options that we want to look at.
But what's that do to our bond rating?
Nothing, because if we're at 17%, probably isn't going to make any difference. What is it?
18% of the general fund budget, right? So it's 6.9 million. You say we got how much?
We would.
2012, 8 million, a little over 8 million. But you gotta remember, you have to back off what's budgeted in 2013, which is 625, so.
So are you telling us that we could take $1 million and still be at close to 18%?
No, I'm not telling you that. Dave's doing the math.
Well, these people in the audience
What
are
we
tough.
did
They're still hanging
basically-
out.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, with
So are
the
we.
use of fund balance in the 2014 budget as it's recommended, we're still just above our 18% target. I don't know if that's
So if we take the $1 million,
There wouldn't,
it would be 17?
if you would use an additional $1 million of fund balance, as Dave said, you'd be under your targeted range.
Right, but what would it be?
That's not cast in stone. We've changed that before.
We could
too.
change that to 17%. What is,
Well,
what is it?
You can just waive the requirement.
What is the- what is
For this
the-
year and balance your, and adopt your budget.
What is the percent?
I don't have the
need the
numbers in front of me,
percent.
Larry. I don't have today's the fund balance in the general fund in front of me.
Well, it's gotta be.
I don't have anything in front
I-
of me
you know, it's-
either. I mean,
It's gotta be 7 million in the 38 million.
Yeah, 7 or
Yeah,
8
it's
million.
6.9 million.
Oh, okay.
All right.
6.9 million plus 625 that we have budgeted for this year,
All right.
and the 625 we have budgeted for next year.
and keeping in mind that behind the scenes, we know that we're not going to use 625,000 in 2013, so I don't just throw these numbers into the budget. I've
Well,
got all kinds of
Ki-
analysis supporting
Is
it,
it
but
possible that we can withdraw the motion and by Ways and Means, have them come back tonight with, okay, if we want to amend the budget policy to get us through a process so we can go through this book and look at these other options like Headley or the whatever, we're not going to, we just have to massage smallly the fund balance policy or get close to it and make that decision. And let's do this smartly. We can't do it in 1 week or in 30 days.
We have to.
We aren't.
We have to.
We have an option, but we do have an option as a board, if we want to put it on the floor, to looking at our fund balance to give us that margin for the next 6 months.
I'm not
We
willing
do
to
have
do
that option
Well,
as
you
a
got a
board.
motion on the floor.
So what do you want to do, Sonny?
2 points to make. One, the motion is to provide a notice of intent. It's not to sell the bonds, it's not to find it. It's a notice of intent. And it is up to $46 million. So we have the options of looking at other numbers, whether it not be the full 46 million. You know, Dean mentioned the fact that the way the legislation was written, you have to fully fund it. I don't know what that fully funded number is today, or, you know, one of the questions going to be, is MERS going to require us to make a payment in December of 2013 out of this year's budget, which, you know, is it the 4.2 million? Or can we make 1/10 of that 4.2 million and then have the unfunded liability be different into 2014? You know, I don't know where that's going to be. The point is, the motion was to file a notice of intent to sell the bonds. We've got 45 days from the time we file the notice of intent to actually make the decision to sell the bonds. As far as the agreement or the decision to use additional fund balance, that's just simply a motion authorizing the county finance director to expend funds over or below the prescribed fund balance. We don't have to change the policy or anything else. We can give them a one-time authorization to spend additional funding. The point is, the motion that's on the floor starts the 45-day process to move forward with the pension bond. We're not going to sell the bonds this afternoon or between now and tonight's meeting, or we're not going to sell them tomorrow. We have 45 days that we're required before we can sell those bonds. That gives us all the time to answer all the extra questions you want. You know, we've made decisions we just recently made decisions to not sell bonds for a water project that thought we were going to do because it just didn't come out making financial sense and we weren't in a position to do it. You know, we look at selling bonds on a regular basis. Sometimes we sell them, sometimes we don't. We always look at refunding bonds. And sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. It's just sound fiscal decisions. You talk about the county's master plan or strategic plan. One of the key pieces in there is that this county board will be fiscally responsible. This is an opportunity to be fiscally responsible. And it certainly have to look at it. We need to pass the letter of intent so as that we even have the option to do this before the end of the year.
Okay, Mr. Thomas.
When I seconded the motion, I said I was gun shy. I'm not gun shy anymore. We gotta pass it. That's all I gotta say.
Do you want to vote, or do you want to hold a
Go
motion
down.
and put it on later?
Vote, we'll go down.
Well, if it goes down, then
Okay.
that's too bad for you guys.
I'm going to have to call the motion?
I will
We'll have
I'll
a
tell you
roll call
another
vote.
thing, is if you're going through this book page by page, you're gonna do it without me. I've been around here too long, that isn't the way you do it. You go by what they say. If we have to make cuts somewhere, you don't do it tab by tab, you just say, what percentage do we have to lower everybody to make the budget balance? And you just go through and whack every department the same percentage and work from there.
We're gonna have a roll call vote.
Inman,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
No.
Lathrop,
No.
Rennie,
No.
Lemko.
Yes. Motion's defeated.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion make a request motion that staff bring us, if not at Ways and Means, at a relatively short meeting, two items. One is the effect of using $1 million out of our fund balance. What percentage of that would be of our expenditures, along with a copy of the resolution of our fund balance policy for consideration, to get us through a 6-month real budget process. And my second request of this motion would be what incremental amount would have to be asked of the public to do a Headley rollback to get us through the 10-year problem of our accelerated MERS payment.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have support? Do I have any other discussion?
Who seconded?
That was Dr. Lathrop. Can I hear that again, please? I'm
No
sorry.
way.
It's a
I apologize.
It's a request to have staff provide us 2 sets of information.
Okay,
At our next-
I can live with that.
All right.
I'm always welcoming information.
Yes, it's just information. One would be, what would be the incremental cost of a Headley rollback to get us out of the loop for the next 10 years for the defined benefit acceleration?
I hear you.
And the second one would be,
It's a request for information.
request for information about what $1 million would do to our fund balance expenditures, and with a copy of our fund balance policy for consideration.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Thomas,
No.
Wheelock,
No.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Lemko.
No. Motion passes. Okay, where do you want to go now?
You want to schedule something at a Ways and Means?
No.
Or you want to schedule another budget meeting on the 27th? Next Wednesday.
I'm done.
You tell me what you'd like to do.
I say, how fast, we can get some indication from staff, the time.
Well, you got
that they would need
3.5
to get
hours
that.
to Ways and Means, so
Yeah.
you're not gonna get much information between now and then.
Well, we've got, we can get you the copy of the fund balance policy, we can get you the dollar amount that $1 million changes your, I think it's 15.4%, but I want to double check that. And we can give you what a millage, what $1 million additional millage rate would be.
Yeah, that should be fairly simple.
It's not
And we can have that for tonight's meeting.
Okay?
And then from there, we'll schedule a budget meeting if necessary.
Okay. Anything else the commission would like to be brought forward? Public comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. I understand that there's some very strong feelings regarding this budget and bond issue. I'm a little disappointed in the decision. We are a very large part of the budget and obviously affects us a great deal. I'm most disappointed, though, in the fact that you did not take the recommendation of Mr. Benda and especially Dean Bott. This board has relied on Dean Bott for money issues for a very long time. I think you all will agree that he is very conservative. He has not led you down the wrong path, given you any wrong or any wrong decisions in the past. I have never seen him more adamant in a recommendation, and I would ask that you please reconsider your decision as soon as possible. Thank you.
Any other public? We are adjourned.